Oh, we got some live. Here it is. Great. They've come out of the luncheon, apparently, which was closed to the press. And now we're watching to see. There is, I think, Kim Jong Un there, right there, talking. And there's President Trump, who's just come out in front of the flags. We've been waiting for a sort of a communique of some sort, maybe not a formally one, at the end of this day, like at 4 o'clock our time here in the morning, 4 o'clock their afternoon. And there we are just sort of chatting. But they're doing it in plain sight on purpose, I would guess, because they had been behind closed doors. And now they've come out where they know the cameras are on them. They want this to be seen. Now they're chatting, I guess, with their interpreters, and now they're walking out onto the platform, apparently to say something here. This is interesting. This wasn't necessarily planned. Now, they've been through 3 or 4 settings already, beginning at breakfast, a private meeting, then their public meeting, and then a luncheon, at each point allowing the cameras in, but only to do what we call a spray, not to have any back and forth of any kind. But the faces have gone from game faces, if you will, in a sports sense early in the day, to a very jovial kind of companionship to this. That seems very, now they're talking again in English, obviously, and the president seems to have a way of getting a reaction from Kim Jong Un here, and I guess they're coming out to where they're supposed to come to. Let's listen to this.
How's it going? It's going great. We had a really fantastic meeting. A lot of progress, really very positive. I think better than anybody could have expected. Top of the line, really good.
Mr. President,
we're going right now for a signing.
Has he agreed to give up any nuclear weapons, sir?
President, what are you signing? What are you signing, sir? I'm announcing that in a couple of minutes.
Well, they're going to put their signatures to some document, and no one has said ahead, as far as I know, what that document is going to be, but we'll find out in a moment where there's cameras set up inside the room where they're going for this signing. Let's watch. Bobby Ghosh, I don't know if you've got a better shot at knowing what they're going to sign than we do.
No, it seems a little early for the communique. That should be a little later in the day.
Howard, your view at looking at this, how it's going to sell at home? I mean, you know, the way the sides have divided in our country, the people who are for Trump will say it's the greatest thing since Nixon went to China, and the people on the liberal side, the Democratic side, will be skeptical, I think. What do you make of it?
Well, there's obvious initial political advantage, I think, some gravy here for Donald Trump. But the bigger question is what substance will come from it. What fascinates me, a couple things. One of them is that this is diplomacy as practiced in the new age of authoritarianism that we're headed into. We've had 75 years after World War II of what they called at the G7 summit rules-based diplomacy. Donald Trump doesn't like groups. He doesn't like being part of a group because he doesn't get all the credit. He wants to do it singly and alone with somebody else across the table. And apparently Kim Jong Un likes it too. And I think Donald Trump sensed before he got into this that Kim would be a willing partner. One of Donald Trump's gifts is his ability to sense weakness in the positions of others. And despite the fact that Kim got his nuclear weapons and some of his intercontinental ballistic missiles, he's in desperate shape. His economy is nowhere. There's no electricity grid. There was famine in the past. There's chaos right on his doorstep. And Donald Trump, I think, sensed a guy who wanted a deal, who was desperate for status. Donald Trump knows, he has a feral sense of people desperate for status. And he saw that in Kim and saw that this was low-hanging political fruit that he could get, at least initially. And I think Donald Trump's going to get that. The question, of course, this isn't G7. This isn't rules-based. This is Donald Trump-based. That's the way Donald Trump wants it, and that's the way, frankly, other authoritarian leaders in the world want it. That's why he's more comfortable dealing with the Kim, why he's more comfortable talking to Putin when he isn't threatening, why he says he has such a great relationship with Xi Jinping. That's what we're seeing here, and it's a whole new world diplomatically and politically, and Donald Trump is creating it on the fly. Whether it will work, you know, the Chinese may get a little nervous here, but, you know, what actually are they going to agree to? I think you're going to see the United States offering economic help, and we'll see what Kim is willing to give in return.
Well, we're watching Kim Jong And the president, it looks to me a very choreographed day until now.
Right.
They were leaving from lunch to head over there, Bobby, and they seem like they're stopped at this door. I can't figure out what's going on here. With all the cameras on, there's John Bolton, the president's national security advisor, chiming in there.
Well, these guys are making it up as they go along.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this doorway situation, and it's really an interesting sort of moment where they're both sort of chatting away on the situation they're in. We see a couple of people, representatives on both sides with the president, and the interpreter there on the president's right there.
Well, I don't think every moment of this has been walked through a million times before they took these walks themselves. You may remember a moment earlier on the videotape where they kind of turned the wrong way. They turned the wrong way before they then went
Howard. But here the door is opening. They're shaking hands and going in different directions.
There you go.
Oh, no, they're both going into the same room apparently through different doors. No. Well, this is strange. No, they're both heading off to take a break maybe. This could be anything. Bobby, Howard, this could be bathroom breaks. It could be anything. But what we're told is they're going, according to the president, again, there they go. He's walking down the portico here. It looks like the West Wing over here.
It strikes me, Chris, that they've spent rather more time together than maybe. Now, maybe they were lying in the weeds on this thing the whole time, but it strikes me that they spent a little more time together, if not a lot more time together, than they thought they might. And I think they're both retreating to their respective camps to figure out what they just did.
Let's talk about this, Howard. Let's talk about some hard facts here. I mean, everybody on the skeptical side of this is wondering, are we going to actually get something done in terms of denuclearization, or is this going to be a let's make friends sort of thing, hands across the border occasion? And I guess with John Bolton standing there next to the president, who's a super hawk and I expect very demanding in terms of something hard here. Bobby, you first. Will Bolton's president suggest they're going to get something done on the nuclear side, not just on the let's have an end to the official war between North and South Korea here?
I honestly think that Pompeo was in those meetings as well. I honestly think this is coming down to Trump and Kim and those two, the chemistry between them, what they agree, whether Pompeo likes it or not, whether Bolton likes it or not, they're going to have to sign off on this. This is going to come down to the two leaders. I think it's interesting that Pompeo was there, but I think his presence is balanced off. Sorry, that Bolton was there, but his presence is balanced off by Pompeo, who is not a super hawk. So I think those are, we'll try to read the tea leaves there, but I think what it comes down to is basically what these two men are going to decide.
This scene is amazing with these two guys talking to the two women. They're chatting up there, having this sort of social time almost. And now,
he seemed quite happy to let Trump lead him.
Yeah. Howard?
Well, I think the one sort of technical problem here is that the president and Kim spent about 45 minutes together alone at the beginning with only the interpreters. And now I think they've all got it.
What do you make of that? Why do you think Trump wanted to be alone with them with no record kept?
For the reasons that I said before, which is this is all about his individual performance. In his mind and in his lifelong strategy of negotiation and branding and salesmanship, it's all about him and him being alone in the arena with the one person he's negotiating with. Whether he's trying to sell them a condo or borrow money from them.
Doesn't a businessman take notes?
Not Donald Trump. I mean, I've been in Donald Trump's office. I didn't see him taking any notes. He does it by what he says.
Let's watch this again. Howard, hold on for a second.
Let's watch. Top of the line. Really good.
This president has
going right now for a signing.
Has he agreed to give up any nuclear weapons, sir?
Well, Bobby, I don't think there's a moment that's passed the cameras and the press that somebody hasn't yelled out, are you going to deal with this nuclear thing or not, buddy? And I think the answer's been silence in every moment.
He has not directly addressed that. He's only spoken in generalities and expressions that we're familiar with. Top of the line is a sort of classic real estate language there. But you're right. He has not directly spoken about the nukes to the journalists. But as you say, we're expecting some sort of a statement in about 3 hours from now. By then we'll have, hopefully, a pretty clear idea.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.